Good evening and welcome to your Four Lads Sunday show. Now, before I say hello to the guests, I always do need to do this and give a quick mention to all of the wonderful sponsors that we've got here at Four Lads. First up, our very own exclusive Sunday show sponsor, Mortgage First. They are a family-run mortgage and protection advice business and will be supporting the Sunday show for all of this season, and we are absolutely thrilled to have them on board with us. We're also delighted to have the support of CBD Oil Scotland, LBJ Consultants, Elite Scooters Scotland, Metaclad, the Aesthetics Lounge by Sharon, Denhay Bacon, as well as our very own Candid, along with the season partners that we've got over at Rangers Youth Development Company, Black Rooster and Art of Gold. We really do appreciate all of the support that these sponsors give us to be able to put on shows like this. To find out more info on all the sponsors, you'll be able to check out the social show's description and some of the special offers that are available when you mention Four Lads there as well. Now, for this group therapy session tonight, we have a full house, which is good, especially when we have a result to look back like we did on Friday. First up is Dougie. Good to see you, sir. How are you doing?
Good evening.
Football aside.
Well, yeah, it's a funny one because I'm on the first Sunday show of the season, and last year I was criticised for being too negative at times in a season where we finished third. I will never apologise for having standards, but I had hoped under a new manager that I might be able to crack a smile. But here we are again. It's a bit like Groundhog Day. But full disclosure to everyone, I missed the first half on Friday night because I play and manage an over 35s team. And we were just coming off the pitch at half-time after a 6-0 win, 6-0 victory for us. When I checked the scoreline and was able to watch the start of the second half in the car on the way up the road, and then the rest of it when I got home. So I've not fully watched the first half back. I've managed to watch enough clips. So yeah, you can excuse me for not having the full details and blow-by-blow of the first half.
To be fair, Dougie, I think most of us have probably tried to put that out of our memory, given some of it. Poor Mark has had to do the post-match straight after it and then come on to Sunday show to talk about it again, so he's doing it twice. So I feel for him. William, good to have you on, mate.
Good to be here. Good to do my first pod with Dougie as well. And obviously back with yourself and Mark. I feel like the fairy godmother for the second Shrek when she gets the bad news and she's like, look what you've made me done, you've ruined my diet. And that's what I done today. I went out and got a McDonald's because it was the only thing that could cheer me up because of that bad result yesterday. So as what it is, we'll try and talk, unpack it, and hopefully it can bring some joy to people or some sort of relief for what we've just witnessed on Saturday.
I was going to say, I think joy is going to be something that will be in small demand during this pod, William, but I like you. That's an optimistic viewpoint to have. Even the eternal optimist that is myself, I think that gets smacked out of me on Friday night, so we'll see how it goes. Mark, loving the commitment to the cause, not only talking about this fresh on the post-match, but you've stood up and turned up again for us here on the Sunday show, mate. Welcome.
No, absolutely, mate. It's always a pleasure to be on here, to be fair. And in all fairness, I've actually had quite a good weekend other than that on Friday. Just a lot of nice time with my daughter, and the weather's been quite nice down in the northeast, so I've thoroughly enjoyed that, but still not over, given how bad that was on Friday. And like I said, we will dissect, and I'm happy to give my thoughts. Given I have watched a bit of the game back, just to recap bits and pieces on where I think we've got some flaws. But yeah, we will also go into that tonight.
Yeah, we will, and sadly, it's the first topic of discussion that we need to broach, and I think there's one word that probably will come into this in a little bit, and we'll touch on it as we go through some of the different points. But it's a word that I think we've spoken about quite a lot on this pod is around desire. It's probably the desire to do the dirty stuff. It's the desire to get back and track your men in fill positions when other players are, maybe out of position. And I think that was probably a theme of what happened during that first half. But I guess the first, I wouldn't say warning signs, but the first thing that sparked a bit of debate in our group chat was probably the starting lineup. I think you probably could have easily predicted that back five of Panda, Romans, Fernandes, Godfrey, and Sterling, which is what we probably all kind of expected it to be. But that was then where it took a bit of a turn, because I don't think anybody anywhere that I could see had predicted that it would then be Devlin, Diamande, Asgard, Gassama, Nadiri, and Shankland. Now, I guess I know you didn't get to see the game, Dougie, so I'll just come to you on comments for that lineup to begin with, because we know when you're going into this game, the big problem that we had was the lack of quality in those forward areas and on the wings. But I think when I saw that, I was really surprised that we didn't see a Dan Neil or a Dragicevic, even though I know he just signed in beside Cammy Devlin. But the fact that Curtis wasn't given a starting berth either, because you would have thought that he would have been a good option. What were your thoughts when you heard what the starting lineup was?
I think you're right in terms of the back five. I think the back five picked itself, and most people's predicted teams that I'd seen on social media had guessed that back five, but nobody would have guessed the remainder of that team. I think what that team selection shows right now is that Derek McInnes does not know his strongest 11. He is trying to create a team and is trying to work with the players that he has available to him at the moment. And when I done my predicted team, for example, I was going 4-4-2. I'm not a big fan of 4-4-2, especially away from home. I think 4-4-2 is great when you've got possession and you're dominating the game, you're creating a lot of chances, but I think you can easily get overrun in midfield. So I'd rather us be able to be going 4-2-3-1 in a lot of games, particularly away from home like Tannadice. But I did predict the 4-4-2. My midfield, though, was a central midfield pairing of Devlin and Neil and wide players of Asgard and Diamande. And I think therein lies the number one problem that we're going to get into later on in the chat, which is the squad imbalance that we have and the lack of transfers that we have not made, because we're talking about players to play wide that are going to be the ones to take the game to Dundee United, and realistically there's not many in this squad. It's a huge weakness that we have in this squad at the moment. Not sure why McInnes opted against the likes of Daniel against Shermite, and there's serious question marks on that selection, but hopefully he learns from it. But I think starting Gassama, starting Nadiri, is him trying to find something that's going to break down Dundee United, because when I predicted that midfield and put it out on social media, the comments I was getting back was, where's the creativity coming from? Where's the pace? Where's, where are we actually going to create goals? And that's justified. And I think that's why he's particularly started Gassama, and pre-season and in the first competitive game of the season, Gassama's let the manager down. Derek McInnes is in a very funny position just now, because he's got to look at that squad that are still here and see if he can get a tune out of them. And he's failed to get a tune out of Gassama. He's whipped them off at half-time. It wouldn't surprise me if we don't see Gassama in the next game, or if Gassama then starts to get linked with other teams, because he's let the manager down. But I go back to the point, Rob, around team selection. I genuinely think it's just Derek McInnes trying to find a way, and he won't. I don't think we're going to be able to predict a starting 11 or be happy with a starting 11 until we are finished the window and we know what squad we're left with. And Derek McInnes has been able to shape the squad that suits him, because I think one of the key points here is we've changed our manager during pre-season, which will have changed our transfer plans not only during this pre-season, but Danny Rule was given January to start to build the team for this season as well. We went out and we spent a lot of money in January. We signed 3 guys permanently, 1 guy on loan. Nadiri obviously started, Roman started, Chukwuani's bombed out, Skov Olsen wasn't given permanent. So I think we've got to give McInnes time and be patient with McInnes as he builds his team, recognising that he is going to have to right the wrongs of 5-6 seasons of very poor transfer dealings, and it's not going to be an overnight fix.
Yeah, and I don't think most people are criticising McInnes. I think everybody is now kind of fully aware of the lack of quality that we've got in that squad. And from my own perspective, I still thought that our squad was good enough to go to Dundee United and get a result without the quality additions that we needed in the wing area. What we saw on Monday really surprised me, just with how bad some of the performances were. And I guess that's where the team selection and maybe setup comes in a wee bit, Mark, from my point of view, because you've got a Gassama, an Asgard, and a Dio in there. Those three aren't necessarily your grafters that you're going to need in a game like Dundee United away. You've got Devlin in there, who was probably half a man because he was carrying an injury, and he's gone into that midfield to try and do the work that he's done. But I don't think he really had anybody helping him there to cover that and kind of dominate that position. And then the problem that we've got, because we've got no wingers, we're expecting the width to come from our fullbacks with the other players moving inside the field, which then left us with massive gaps at the back. So it is being able to find a shape, I guess, with players that's going to make this work in the short term. But that first half was definitely not the answer.
No, I think to Dougie's point, probably that formation, that 4-2-3-1, exactly covers that in terms of if you're asking the fullbacks to bomb on, then you can have one of your centre midfielders covering that space if they're obviously attacking whatever flank that may be. And I think we've seen that in terms of, and we've seen that in the build-up of pre-season as well in terms of gaps, in particular on our left-hand side. I know we're going to discuss Romans Fernandes in a little bit, but it has been a bit of a problem for us with the games we've been able to see. St Etienne, we're a little bit better in West Ham, and then again on Friday night we had significant problems. I think to Dougie's point, I think now between now and the end of the window, we're not seeing our starting 11. There's still going to be a number of changes in that, and I think between now and then, it's not going to be pretty, but it's just a matter of grinding out results. That's literally all we need to do, and however we find a way of doing that. But we don't have balance. You're mentioning Dio, you're mentioning Asgard, Gassama. I think you can only afford to have one of them in, given I think if you've got three of them, then technically you're not working with 7, 10, 8 players, but you are causing the likes of Devlin a problem. There's not that support in the middle of the park getting overrun. We've seen bits of that on Friday night again. And I think that's where sort of like a Daniel, and I know you said about Dragovic as well, but I remember back in the day, we used to sign players like a couple of days before and they'd be in on the Saturday. And this whole, they've got to settle in, it's just nonsense. Like, I know there was a visa thing before, you know what I mean? But like mine back in the day, that's boys used to be signing on a Thursday, be back in playing on a Saturday. Like, again, they're in hotels and all this stuff. They're moved to a different country and whatever. But if they're good enough, chuck them in that team. If they're going to make a difference to starting 11, get them in. Simple as that. But we've seen me do that. I don't know what it is. And we've done that with a number of players now. But if he's good enough, get him in. I think him and Devlin would work. Neil's another option. I've said my points pretty clear about Dio on Friday. It's not the first time. Like I said, the boy's got ability. However, there's too many games that have been worse than games that he's been better in for me, and that's a problem. Like I said, the boy's technically gifted player. Something like Asgard, again, that's a debate across the fan base, and rightly so. Again, boy's got ability, but we can't have the likes of Gassama, Dio, and Asgard in our team, given too many passengers for us, and in particular in a place like Tannadice.
Rob, see, just on the point on Dragojevic, we have 11 centre mids in our squad at the moment. 11. One of the challenges that we have around our, when you talk about Dragojevic coming into the team, I would assume the manager's thinking, I'll give him some time to allow him to settle, because there's 10 other guys in this squad. I know a few guys aren't available. Cifuentes is injured. Raskin's unavailable at the moment, and we'll come on to that shortly. But McInnes has probably looked at it and thought, I don't need to rush him yet, because I've got a plethora of other options. What you've just said there, Mark, around expecting guys to come in and then play straight away, I think we're going to have to see that when it comes to the wide players. When we do go into the transfer market and we do eventually sign those game changers that the manager has said is a pressing need to sign, those guys are going to have to come in and hit the ground running. without a pre-season, without knowing their teammates, that's a big ask.
It is.
Man, last season, chucked him in the goals and he was outstanding. You know what I mean? So, but historically, we have done it far too often. Sorry, Rob, I just had to add that.
No. I think it is a really good point. It was something we're going to talk about in a wee minute, just about the fact that a lot of the profile we signed in midfield are very, very similar, and that creates us a bit of a massive problem, William, because one of the frustrations during that first half was that we kind of huffed and puffed. There was nothing that we really created. I think Asgard is the one that you would look at within that team, and potentially Gassama on a very, very good day, that would be the people that could take the ball, beat a man, and potentially link up play a little bit better. Now, there's a couple of little flashes from Gassama in doing that before he then decided to almost try and clear the stadium footprint with a shot after beating a few men. But the problem that we've got, you look at the midfielders that Dougie's talking about there: Dan Neil, Dragojevic, Cammy Devlin, Connor Barron. I'm not going to count Raskin because he's still away just now. Lyle Cameron, Chukwani, Diamande. None of them are necessarily creative driving forces in midfield that are going to score you goals. And I think that's the type of player that we're going to need to add to the squad, alongside quality in the left and quality in the right. Because at the moment, we don't really have that game changer in the squad, and a ball carrier who can take the ball, go on a run, and allow us to regroup ourselves and hold on to the ball a wee bit.
Yeah, again, I think the issue is when it came to the transfer window, one of the major problems that we had was the midfield from last season. I mean, I think in many games that we lost the midfield battle, and understandably so. The scouting team, the board, all identified, right, cool, we clearly need new midfielders, and you've pointed out the qualities that we need. And again, sorry for this, but I think, and this is me as well, I'll include myself in this, and as the fan base and all the scouting team, I think we were a bit vajazzled with the whole Lewis Ferguson thing. Like the possibility of him coming and getting that player who can that player who can take the ball, drive with it, all that type of stuff. And I think we've neglected. And again, it's not to say that I'm right, but again, I remember the WhatsApp group, and we were talking about it before we joined the live show today. I would mentioned that, listen, if we get 17-20 million for Raskin, we can't just splash that all out on one player. We need to be smart and get that 7-8 million in other key positions. We've brought in Shankland, who I think is the best finisher in the Scottish League. But if you don't have any creative talent around him on the wing, or at number 10, like Dougie's, I agree with Dougie's saying that 4-2-3-1, or even if you don't want to do that, again, if you want to do maybe away for Europe, like in a 4-1-2-2-1, like a kind of sitting with your 6 and 2 holding midfielders, whatever you want to do, and you don't have a number 10, we still need creative outlets. And again, it just became very one-dimensional again. Like Gassama would go down the left, he would try and do a wee stutter step, and then just pass it in or pass it back. Asgard, again, credit where credit's due. He did obviously try and pass it out to the right, but there was just really nobody there. We were looking for Sterling and McCrory at that point to deliver a ball in, and they're not the fullbacks that we need. Sorry, they're not the fullbacks that have that ability to deliver a ball in that's going to then go and give Shankland an intelligent run on to go and get that in the net. I think there was one time, I think it was Dio, on the right side where we got a ball in, and you could clearly see the intelligence of Shankland because he ran on. Again, maybe you could argue, he should just get his foot, wrap it round. But again, he still got it on target, made the keeper pull off a save. But I think we're playing with Nadiri out there, who again is a workhorse. I know people have said he's like kind of the younger version of like Thomas Muller and stuff like that, and I know sometimes he played out in the right. But just because you're getting that reference doesn't mean you can actually do that. And again, how much wage contribution as a business and a club do we have tied in that midfield? As Dougie said, 10, 11 centre midfielders we've got there? We have to be ruthless. We have to say to these guys, listen, you're not on the plans, so find another club, because if that's what's holding us up from getting this talent in, then we're just going to be stuck with mediocrity again, because we weren't. This is just my opinion, but we weren't brave enough when it came to business and cutting our ties with players. I get we're a respectful club. We hold our traditions well. We're proud of it, but we also need to turn over players and just be like, listen, your time at Rangers is up. Let's move on. And again, just like what Mark's saying, with when we get players in, we just throw them in. I don't know myself. Can anyone explain to me why Raskin's unavailable? Is it a World Cup holiday? Or like, why is he unavailable? Is he injured? Listen,
No, he's still away. He's still away. He's still got time off, I think, doesn't he? Because he's been there. But again, this is one of the things that a lot of people will levy at him, is that Asgard come back after 5-6 days rest. I think Messi's now back. We're into Miami. Yeah, it's only into Miami, but he was in the final of the World Cup. I think that's a clear indication that Raskin will be leaving the club, and it's just going to be a case of when. I guess the problem that we've got is that we can't wait until that happens. You know, there is a whole ecosystem. Ross mentioned this. I think it was on Thursday, but I can't remember when I was on last. But there's a whole ecosystem above us that needs to get moving in order to let some of the players that we're probably targeting to come loose. The big problem that we've got after that performance on Friday night is we cannot wait for that. You know, we've known all summer what loan players we were going to get rid of. We knew probably what players weren't going to play a part in the squad going forward, the likes of potentially Gassama, Ant-Man, etc. It was glaringly obvious what we needed from last year, but the recruitment team haven't focused on the areas that we've needed. You know, even at the back, where we lost Giga, Cornelius, Aarons, Magoma, 4-year players there have gone. We knew Suter potentially was on a shaky peg. We knew we only had one real fit left back in Romans. We knew that Sterling was potentially then going to be only the only right back available because Tav had left. Yet we haven't really done the right business yet, Dougie, in filling those gaps. We've filled the squad so far with good options from a squad point of view, but we haven't signed anybody that you would say is going to be that quality to take us on to the next level to help those players around them perform better.
Can I say one thing? Sorry, Dougie. Because to go off that, listen. Again, Dougie got a lot of slack for it, right? But he mentioned obviously about Asgard and the possibility that he could come back and do. That shows me a major difference in mindset. Someday it would be easy for him to sit back and not come back early and be like, do you know what? Nah, I'm not going to come back early. Yet we've got a player, Raskin, who's clearly sitting there just weighing up his options. I remember he had an interview saying he wants the best for Rangers. See what he's doing. This is just my opinion. See what he's doing right now. This isn't the best for Rangers. See, while you're at this club, you still play for this club. If you are an option, get on that field, and then we can use that. Do you know what I mean? We can say, well, do you know what? See these clubs that are waiting. Let's go and see what other clubs are interested, because he's came back and he's playing for Rangers. So let's not wait about in our laurels and let things go by. Sorry, Dougie.
Just before you go in, Dougie, there's a comment I need to address as well. Somebody's asking, is our new captain not supposed to be a difference maker? He absolutely is if you get the ball into him. The problem is there's no service going to Shankland. There was no service on Friday night to him. He's a penalty box striker. He's an instinctive finisher. You put the ball in that 6-yard box or in that penalty area, 9 times out of 10 he's going to stick the ball in the back of the net. It's a great opportunity for Chimiti towards the end of that game to square the ball into Shankland, who had a bit more space, and there could have been a different story that we're talking about here. Sorry, Dougie.
So many comments to unpick there on the Sharmiti chance. I think that goes back to a selfish mindset rather than a team mindset. You know, it's a bit like Asgard. I think Asgard has the potential to kick on and be a big player for us this season. He got an important goal for us, but there's moments in that game he's trying an overhead kick. For example, he's saying afterwards that he's disappointed with the result but happy that he scored. He's posting on Instagram that he's happy to get his goal and off and running in the season. Sharmiti's looking for that moment of glory, rather than actually thinking about the team and just squaring it to Shankland for a tap in. And listen, it's going to take a while before, I think a lot of people expected when we recruited McInnes, along with bringing guys like McGregor, Jim McAllister back in, all part of the team, that we're going to have an instant change in mentality. This team finished third last year. It's going to take a little bit of time before we change things top to bottom within the players' mindsets and mentality. I have every faith that we'll do it, but it's going to take time. On Raskin, I think Raskin and Suter not being a part of the squad right now is naive from two perspectives. One, we could potentially travel on Thursday having to play a youth player at centre-back in a European game, when Suter is still a Rangers player and could play. And two, we devalue these guys because everyone knows that we're trying to get rid of them. The fact that Raskin's not playing for us right now suggests that we do plan to sell him. And it might be one of the reasons why nobody, because let's be real here, right? Because people are going on about, why is it that Raskin is still here? Is it Nico Raskin's fault? We have not had a bid for Nico Raskin yet. We've not had a bid. The reason he's still a Rangers player is because nobody has bid for him. I fully expect that he will leave. I fully expect we will have a bid, but I don't think we are helping the situation by not playing him. Right, in terms of some of the comments around the squad, then, right, because a few things just to call out. 14 players left in the summer, including players that have gone out on loan, Baylor Rice, and guys where their loan period has finished as well. And that's a lot of players. Moore, Scove-Olsen, Aarons, Giga, Cornelius and Magoma. We have only brought 8 in. The 4 guys have returned to us on loan and are still here. Enciala, Cifuentes, Cameron and Coslin. None of them feature in our plans. They will all be in our plans to move on. But when you compare them, that's only a net 2, right? But it's when you look at the positions from the squad, players that were available in the squad last season, and you look at who we've signed this summer, it's when you look at that you see the imbalance. So I'm just going to quickly run through them. In goals, 1 in, 1 out. Right back, 2 out, 1 in. Centre back, 2 out, 2 in. But what's crucial is the comment about Suter not being available. Left back, 1 out, 0 in. Huge concern about left back because we're about to go into a period where we're playing 3 games, 7 days. To Romans, we're asking a lot of a guy playing 3 games, 90 minutes every single game, 2-3 times a week. We need to get some support in for Tour Romans. But it's centre mid, 0 out, 3 in. Centre forward, 0 out, 1 in. And the key part here is right mid is 2 out, 0 in. And left mid, 1 out, 0 in. Now, you guys will remember I raised my concerns in our WhatsApp chat a couple of weeks ago about our transfer activity and particularly the lack of pace and creativity. And I was told to put my big boy pants on. So I'm going to try and do that tonight because since Friday, the podcasts that I've listened to have all pointed fingers at the recruitment team. We all know the gaps that exist. I've just called them out there. We've got an issue at centre back now that Godfrey's missing. McCanya's not ready yet due to his visa. We've only got 1 left back. We've not recruited wingers. We all know the issues. We all know where we need to strengthen. We all know the names that are in the frame right now. What I'm going to try and do is explain why I think we're in this position, because I think there's a lot of context that keeps getting missed. So we didn't win the league. If we won the league, we would have qualified for the Champions League and straight into the group stages and had the riches of the Champions League. That is the number 1 reason why we are in the position that we are right now. We are suffering from the failings of the past because of the Champions League and because of where we finished in the league. As a result of that, we're not even guaranteed Europa League. We need to go through the qualifiers. We front-loaded investment in January, signing guys like Chukwuani, who aren't even in the first 11. We're talking about who we are predicting to start on Friday night, guys that were available, guys that came onto the pitch. Chukwuani did not feature. He was a big outlay in January. I've already mentioned about the change of manager. We have brought in a new lead scout as well. We are relying on sales. So there was a comment earlier on around the fact that we have signed players that are too similar in the midfield, and we have. But what we have to recognise is sometimes you can only sign the guys who are available at this moment in time. You look at the centre mids that we've signed. Neil was a Bosman, so he's available. Devlin's a Bosman, so he's available. Dragojevic, I think, was in a very similar position to Pandur, where Belgrade had to sell a player due to FFP. So we've been able to go in there and strike a deal. I have every faith right now that the club and the recruitment team know the positions. It's one of the things I think is really refreshing about Derek McInnes. It's what I loved about Steven Gerrard, and I think we've had a period between Gerrard and McInnes where McInnes is doing what I love. He's saying the exact same things that us supporters are seeing. He's saying that we are lacking positions. You know, he's called out centre back, he's called out left back, he's called out the game changers in the final third. I love that because it's what we can see. We've had a couple of managers in the past that have tried to be clever in the press, and they've made comments where I'm just like, I don't think you get it. Danny Rule, for example. It's refreshing to hear that Derek McInnes knows it, and I have every faith that our recruitment team are looking at these players. But we've got to remember as well, not every single club is as far down the line as what we are as well. Our league campaign has started. England hasn't. For example, Cozy Dewberry, Mikey Moore, Spurs and Brighton are still wanting to look at those players before they make a decision on them. So there's still reasons for me why we've not been able to bring in the right players that we want to. I am 100% convinced that by the end of the transfer window, we will have the positions that we need to have, that we need to strengthen. The wide players, the game changers. But one of the things that I want to stress is we're in the position that we are right now for a couple of reasons. One is we've changed the manager, and that changes a philosophy. We need a period of stability, and that stability needs to be by backing Derek McInnes. You know, I've already seen comments in the chat about Derek out. Honestly, ridiculous, right? So there's a period of we need some stability right now with Derek McInnes. But we're also in a period right now where we are trying to offload guys that we have signed in previous windows that did not work. The worst thing that we could possibly do between now and the transfer window closing is panic buy and sign the wrong guys that everybody says, finally, we've signed a right winger, but he's not an improvement on what we have at the moment. We need to sign the right players so that fast forward 12 months, we are not having to do wholesale changes again, where we're having to ship 14 players out and counting, by the way. You know, see if I look at, you know, we've got 14 out. I still count Suter, Enciala, Barron, Raskin, Bayrami, Cifuentes, Cameron, McCausland, and probably Gassama still to leave the club. That is a mass exodus. We cannot be in this position every single year where we need to be transforming the club. So I understand everyone's impatient. I'm impatient, but I'm trying to turn over a new leaf right now with some positivity. And what I would say right now is I would rather sign the right players than the wrong players early. Let's allow this transfer strategy to play out. Let's allow us to sell Nico Raskin and reinvest that money elsewhere in the team, hopefully with the game changers. You know, we would all love somebody like Václav Černý to come back, much more than a Cozy Dewberry or the boy Marcelo that chose to go and play for a Saudi Arabian reserve team today. But another name that's out there just now is the likes of Ferez Gagemis, who plays in the Serie A. These guys are going to cost you £10 million. The reality is, because of the front loading in January, because of the lack of sales, because of a number of other factors, we don't have the money to go and spend that £10 million right now. We need to wait for all these things to fall into place. So I'm prepared to give them some time, hoping that when it comes to next season, we're not having to make 10 plus transfers. We're having to make some small tweaks to the team to bring in some guys that are the missing piece of the jigsaw, or replace the guys that have left the club. Hopefully, you know, we can keep a hold of guys like Fernandes or Meeting. I know we're going to come on to some of the failings in the game Friday night, and Fernandes didn't cover himself in glory. But we do need to be patient. I'm going to urge patience. Whilst everyone's panicking right now, I'm going to urge patience and say, let's sign the right players rather than the wrong players that we have to replace again in 12 months. Was that a sufficient rant for you, Robert?
I think in an ideal world, Dougie, I would agree with a lot of that. But I think you've also got the pragmatic approach as well at the moment, which is that's fine if the team gets over the line and gets wins, because that's what it's about at Rangers at the moment. And I think that's where the frustration comes with a lot of the fans, is that, like we've said, we should have more than enough in the bag to go to Dundee United with the squad that we've got and the failings that we've got in it and the gaps that we've got in it and beat them. And I guess, Mark, this is where it comes down to, it doesn't matter what type of player you sign, if the people that we've got in the building and the people that we're going to sign don't have the desire to do the stuff that needs to be done on the pitch. We could pay 10 million quid for them, but that quality isn't necessarily going to buy you somebody that has that hunger and desire and the want to fight tooth and nail to get over the line if we're lacking in quality. And I think that's the frustrating thing for me on Friday, was the first half we were totally passive, and then second half we get ourselves back into the game and we just switch off. We don't continue in the same vein of form that we had before we scored that equaliser, where we were putting Dundee United under pressure. So we can sit here and go, yep, we've got 4 weeks left of the transfer window, but how many games are in there that we potentially drop points in? So absolutely agree, Dougie, that we don't go out and panic buy, but we shouldn't be in a position where we need to panic buy at this stage if a recruitment team are doing the right jobs and have a short list of targets that you've got in each position. And I guess, Mark, that desire piece is something that needs to come for the player themselves, doesn't it? It's not going to be something that can be coached into them. And it comes back to the type of characters that you bring into the building and you sign. And on the face of it, we've made a bit of a change of that. We still get some of the old Garden Deal and Gassama, etc., that potentially are a little bit lacking in that area. But we should be shown enough to beat Dundee United.
Absolutely, mate. I think to the recruitment point, that should be part of due diligence anyway, in terms of that understanding if they've got desire, etc. You know, we should be looking at certain characteristics of players. You know, we've heard that in the past. I know Gerard was very big on that in terms of when they looked at a player, it wasn't just a matter of ability. They had different checkpoints throughout. And you could kind of see that as Gerard's team evolved over his tenure. And I understand Dougie's point in terms of timings, etc. Regardless whoever the manager was, and I get obviously he'd want a certain profile of a player, the fact of the winger's position that we've still done nothing in, and Kenny I think was absolutely spot on in the chat today, we have neglected that position for far too long. The last time we invested any money, he's right, was Brian Kent back in 2019, and we've done nothing since. You know, we've dripped and drabbed with little bits here and there, a couple of million stuff, and that for me, you know, is unforgiving. And I get it's going to be a challenge in the sense that yes, there's been a World Cup year, so that does throw everything in perspective in terms of teams coming back, players coming back, etc. But my worry is the players we're linked with, and it's far too often, we've said this, and in particular we've done it last summer, was the whole project piece, you know, and there's guys linked with Serie who play in Serie B, etc. I'm just done with all that. Like, I get you need to sign a player here and there, you bring them in, you develop them, you get a resale value, and you go again. I get all that, but it's too often we're doing that now, and I think that's a frustrating thing. And my worry is you know, Raskin could be up to the last day of the transfer window and then goes, we get that money in, and then what do? Then panic buy does kick in because we've got 15 million, 20 million, whatever that may be, and then we're trying to get 4 or 5 boys in the last day. It's not going to happen. And then by that point, given the squad and where we currently are, talking about desire, etc., Rob, I mean, now my worry is, you know, we drop more points between now and the end of August. And then Derek McInnes has got a mountain to climb. Yeah, we can bring in X, Y, and Z over that period. But if you're 6-7 points behind, you know, by the end of August, pressure will be mounting. And I think it's a bit unfair on McInnes because if you look at his hand, he's got to deal with it now. Yes, there's questions about his team selection on Friday. However, I think he's got quite a hard hand he's been dealt. So it's a bit of catch-22 for me. I think one that we need boys in immediately. I think you're right, Dougie, where it's a matter of getting the right player in, making sure they have the right characteristics. But I think there still should have been a lot of that work done before the 2nd of August. You know what I mean? These guys, and we've seen this for countless months now. You know, we basically were out of that league title from 2nd of May or something like that. It was about 3 months ago or so. And why we've not been doing the work and having that per position, X amount of players and going round. And if there has been a bit of challenge of that, they won't exactly call it out publicly, but have some enforcement say we're trying to do X, Y, and Z, whatever that may be. It won't, the fans will still be up in arms, but at the same time, there can be a little bit of understanding. I just think for me, though, we're in a position right now where we're in the shit. That's how I see it. I think, we've got a difficult couple of games coming up, and I am worried come the end of August. If we don't make signings within over the next 7 to 10 days and the games keep coming thick and fast, I'm worried about Europe, the impact of that. But that's not a priority for me. It's about the league, and it always is. The next couple of games, we might struggle, and that's my worry.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't help William either when a couple of the players that you're expecting to maybe kick on this year haven't exactly had the best pre-season and then don't really show up that well defensively against Dundee United and Romans and Fernandes. And we could argue all day about systems and asking Romans to do maybe too much work on that left-hand side himself and covering too much ground. But certainly for the goal that we concede, Fernandes has done a really good job at going out and pressing the striker to begin with, but then just struggles to get back and show the same hunger that he does to get into that position. Now, I do also have a bit of an issue with Asgard initially taking that wee light touch rather than going through the ball and making sure he wins it and takes the player. He tries to do one of the wee flicks to keep possession. But then you've also got like Theo, Cammy Devlin's a bit further away, but you've got a number of players who could potentially make it back into that position for Fernandes to cover him. We need these players to get their heads screwed on quite quickly for Thursday, because if we don't, the team we're facing aren't they half bad. They're undefeated in pre-season so far. They've won their first 2 domestic league games. They get knocked out of Europe last year despite beating Fiorentina in their own patch 4-2. This isn't the stick on gimme tie that I think a lot of us maybe think. Especially when you look at how shaky we're probably going to be for the next couple of weeks as we sort out that defensive unit.
Yeah, I think as well, it's like what we pointed out, again, I think it was Dougie as well said, that the amount of changes that we've had in defence, I'm not trying to make any excuses, but it does take time to build up chemistry and synergy with the players you're playing next to, like getting to know each other, getting to understand how your colleague plays in the field. So Godfrey and Fernandes will try to understand each other. I get you could possibly argue the whole, they've had pre-season, but again, anyone who's done any sort of sports, pre-season and actual season is completely different. The tempo, physicality, everything about it. Again, for me, Romans as well, he came in when we bought him, he was injured, and we asked him to do a lot as well, so we don't know if there's anything he's carrying over to this season. There was 2 times at the back, I'm sure I put in the chat, where I just saw that at the left-back position, there was just a Dundee United player just standing free, and like, if that ball had went out there, again, obviously thankfully it hadn't, you don't know what could have happened from that. But yeah,
we almost lost the game to that though, William. You've got I think it was the where the boy tries to chip Pander, who did a really good job actually at coming out and covering his angles there. But Romans is up the pitch, and I think he whipped the ball into the cross that whipped a cross into the box that eventually Dundee United clear, and that's what makes them break. But again, in a team, you would have a player that would cover that position for Romans so that he doesn't then have the full length of the pitch to run. Because if you look at him, if you look at the one where I can't remember who the Dundee United player was, when he receives the ball, Romans is almost still up in the corner of the Dundee United box. There doesn't seem to be any effort to have got back to track there. And that's the problem when you're trying to use your fullbacks to give you width. Unless one of your centre mids are then going to fill in those positions while they're doing that, you're wide open at that point.
Yeah, listen, not every formation is tactically perfect. You're going to have flaws and stuff like that. And again, I'm not trying to give anyone credit, but again, Jim Goodwin did say in his pre-interview match that he's played against Derek McInnes' side plenty of times, so he has an understanding of how he sets up his team. Again, I think we do have to kind of wait and see the players that we are going to bring in. I know I know it's a cheek to sit and ask people. I'm sitting annoyed as well. Like, we've been here 12, 13 years, and apart from 55, we've not had a good run of successful seasons. But these things will take time. I know it's easy for me to sit here and say that, but players like Romans, Fernandez, stuff like that, they are going to have to want to do that themselves. Derek McInnes can coach them as much as he wants. Shanklin can lead from the front as much as they want. If Romans is not running back, he's not covering himself, or if we don't have Cammy Devlin, I'm not saying it's on Cammy Devlin, but if we don't have a midfielder who's going to fill in at those full-back positions, again, it's a bit hard, because if you're getting your width from both full-backs, I suppose obviously the answer would be it's whatever side you're attacking from, that's where the centre midfielder would go and cover. But again, how many times have we saw our ball go straight across us as well, and we've not reacted to it at the same time? So it's up to those players to want that desire. They have to want to go and bust a gut and cover for their teammates. Manny Fernandez, I think, just because he was kind of the last player that could have some sort of impact, will get the brunt of it. Again, I think it was Kenny or Stevie said there's a plethora of mistakes that was made beforehand. But again, these things are going to happen. We just have to be well drilled. We just have to be stick to the game plan. And when the game plan doesn't work out, we then have to work as a cohesive unit. Like we spoke about, that desire, we're going to have to work for each other. But I'm a believer of these things can't be taught. But that's why McInnes has said he wants certain players with a certain mindset. Like, he doesn't mind players that come in and then eventually they want to move on for Rangers. I don't mind that. We all have to be realistic. We are not the Rangers that I grew up, my two older brothers telling me about, unfortunately, and I don't think we'll ever get back to that stage, because everything's changed. Money's changed football. So that's why sometimes we will have to get diamonds in the rough. That's why sometimes we will have to pay that a lot more for maybe Cherney or whoever we're going to get in that right wing position, or left back, or whoever it's going to be. But we just have to be, I'm sorry, a little bit more patient. We've got these, 4.5 weeks left. Let's see who McInnes brings in. I have full faith that whoever he brings in, he's going to get a tune out of them. And I'm sure every fan can understand McInnes wants success at Rangers. Again, so does every other fan. We want success here. But these things take time. It took Gerrard 3 years. Listen, hopefully it obviously doesn't take us 3 years again. But it's the first game. Let's not try and panic. This Europeans, again, I'm not even going to pronounce their name. Somebody else can do it. I'm not doing it. I said I can't do Scandinavian names, never mind Polish names. So the funny thing might be is it's typical Rangers. It's a European night. We might turn up. We don't know. Again, and that might be the snowball effect that gets us going. A win can do so much for your mentality. Again, obviously, so can a draw and a defeat. But let's just take it how it is. We've got a draw. Let's just deal with it. We'll move on. Go to the next game. Let's get together, and let's just, as much as we can, just try and get behind the squad and the signings they're going to bring in. Again, Derek McInnes knows the people that he wants in this team, and I have full faith in him.
Yeah, it's Jagiellonia Bialystok, I believe, is the attempted pronunciation of that. I'm not going to try and do it again. Once is enough, Dougie. But I suppose, does the injury to Godfrey, the fact that McCrory now, we know he was nursing his knee at the West Ham game, it's obviously a bit of an issue that he is looking at now from a right back point of view. The visa problems that McCann potentially is going to have, does that all of a sudden change where our priority needs to be when it comes to getting somebody over the line for this game on Thursday?
I don't think anything changes, Rob. I think the manager's made it very clear in terms of what positions he wants to strengthen, and it's a case of bringing in the right guys when they're available. I think if a centre-back was available tomorrow, we'd pull the trigger on it. Likewise, I think if a right-winger was available, we'd pull the trigger on it. I don't think it changes anything, to be honest. What I do think, and I've said it already, is I do think it highlights how badly we've managed the Suter situation, because ideally on Thursday you just play Suter or NCL, and neither of them are in the first team squad. Neither of them are going to be involved. So it'll be interesting to see who the manager does play in defence and how he does navigate that. The Godfrey one's disappointing though. It's a slight worry about the Godfrey injury, to be honest, because a guy who hadn't played a lot of football, it was always a gamble of a signing, because it's one of those, he had a great spell at Norwich, he earned a big move to Everton, he was in the England squad a couple of times. It was always one of those signings of, if we can get him back to his best. And that's where the risk is with some of these guys. You know, William made a very good point. We're in a very different market than we were in the 90s. We can't go out and just pick the best players. You know, you're seeing the Coventry lad choosing a reserve team over us. You're seeing Diawara choosing AC Milan reserves over us. It's difficult. You know, it's not Football Manager. It's very difficult to get the right guys over the line. And Godfrey's a concern. I hope his injury's not serious, because I genuinely think Godfrey is the right profile of player that we need. Besides Fernandes, we need somebody with a wee bit of experience. And that's what I think we should be signing as a fourth choice centre-back, Rob. I think we should be signing somebody who's a wee bit long in the tooth, grey-haired. If only there was a Davy Weir that you could come in and have somebody who can be involved in the squad, dressing room, all the leadership capabilities, but help out the younger guys, because Fernandes does need an arm around his shoulder. I don't like hearing people talking about Fernandes being a donkey or Romans being poor. It's game one. These are guys that showed promise last year. Let's be patient. Let's trust the manager and his coaching team that they'll have identified the exact same thing that we all have, and with their ability, put their arm around them and give them a good talking to and good coaching to get back to their best again, because we've got some good players. Let's not all press the panic button just yet. And I look forward to Thursday, although, you know, I get slagged earlier on for my excuse for missing the first half on Friday. I'm working in London on Thursday, and I'm on a plane during our game, so hopefully when I land, it's a positive result.
Fingers crossed, Dougie. Fingers crossed. Mark, I guess, any thoughts on Thursday and how you think McInnes is potentially going to line up in that one, given what we've seen in the first competitive 90 minutes in his reign so far, given that it'll be a tough away game?
Yeah, I think given where we are defensively, I think we'll probably be a bit compact. I think Fernandes, probably Sterling in there. Probably be a back two if he's going to go with that. If he goes with three, don't know if Roms can go in there, but I think it'll probably be Sterling and Fernandes as the two. Right back, obviously, you're saying about McCrory. There's going to be a gap there somewhere. Also, just have to rejig that, to be fair. But I think, given to your point, their form is, and they are quite a decent team. This won't be an easy game. I think it has to go back to sort of the Europa League season when our away games were pretty much sharp shop, and then we'll get them back to Ibrox. I think that's pretty much the approach I would be going with. I think if we open up, and I think there's probably, what I was saying about, obviously if we get a win, it can sort of kick on. My worry with this team, and probably if we're looking at last season in Europe in particular, we were pretty soft and we were pretty poor. You know, a number of new boys, if you go to prior seasons, even domestically, we weren't at our best. However, in Europe, we were outstanding. Even under Clement, we got to, it was a quarterfinals against Benfica. So there was, even that team, I said, fell short in the league. We always had Europe to look forward to. Whereas last season, from the off, we got through the qualifiers, and then from the Europa League stage, we got a home draw to Braga, if I remember rightly. And I think that was it. So we're pretty poor. So, there's been quite a bit of move from over the last couple of years in Europe in particular. So I don't think we have the same mentality in Europe as what we once had, which is a worry. But for me, I'd go back to old ways of shutting up shop, away from home, see the game out, and then get them back to Ibrox. You've got Shankland who can hold the ball, get us up the pitch. But the problem we've got is we've got no ball carriers. So that's a challenge. So it could be a long night for whoever the lone striker is. And I shouldn't be saying that in a qualifier. And I know they've had a decent run, etc. The Polish team. I'm still not Royal, I'm not pronouncing the name. But we should be going and beating them. And I think that's a worrying bit of where we are as a team right now. We've got concerns going away to Poland and thinking, we could be going out of this, which I think's a concern on my part. But we've still got to come back to Ibrox, etc. And that'll be a different game altogether. And by that point, there might be changes, whatever. However, I just think it's pretty telling where we are as a squad right now that we're not confident going into the game on Thursday.
Yeah, I guess, William, we'll finish on this point because it might be a little bit of a positive to take from a Dundee United game. It was obviously probably the first proper glimpse that we had of Pander in goal. I thought positioning wise, did a pretty decent job. If this game on Thursday becomes the tricky tie that we think it might be, we'll probably get to see a lot more of him and how he performs, I guess.
Yeah, no, we will, mate. Again, hopefully not. This is also like kind of what Mark's saying. But this is also a chance for these players. I know it's been said time and time again, right? But this is a chance for these players to go out against a difficult opposition and show their character and show who they are. And Pandor, yeah, again, sometimes I was like, see that way you just play easy on FIFA and you just run out with the goalie. At some points I thought that's what he was doing. I was like, what's going on here? But again, I'm trying to remember the last time, and please correct me when I'm wrong here, lads, the last time we had a confident keeper like that, coming out the 18-yard box and just sweeping it up. And just, again, I've not really seen much of him kind of commanding the back line. I think he kind of knows himself. Maybe the back line is a little bit, it's not a solid foundation yet, so maybe he doesn't want to get too involved in that. But himself, yeah, he is picking up everything. The goal was very unfortunate. I don't think anyone was safe. That striker, he didn't even know that was going in himself. I think he thought it was going wide. But apart from that, Pandor, listen, it might come to where we're having to rely heavily on him, and we get to see why we have signed him. And if that's the case, if it keeps it a 0-0, it gets back to Ibrox, and then we go in for there. I'm absolutely fine with that. I get what Mark's saying with the kind of questions that we might have, but I mean, back in the days, that's what Walter Smith was known for, no? Being pragmatic, park the bus, do what we need to do, and bring it back to our home field. I would take every game like that if that means we're going to bring success to the football club. So I'd be absolutely fine if Pandor comes out man of the match, pulling off absolute worldies. But again, I also hope that's not the case. I hope he has a very quiet game. I hope the players out in field get a chance to showcase their talent and why we've been picked by Derek McInnes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably a good way to end the show. It's never ever easy when we need to unpick a bad result like we had to do tonight. But I really do appreciate you guys for joining me to talk through it. Dougie, always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, always a pleasure. It's not easy, and it has been negative, it has been downbeat, both on the podcast and in the comments. If we do drop more points, if we do get defeated in Europe, and if we don't sign the players that we're expected to, the fingers are going to continue to be pointed in every direction. And it's only a matter of time before they're pointed at the door of Andrew Kavanagh. But despite what we've said about the position that we're going into on Thursday, a Derek McInnes team is a lot more resolute than a Russell Martin or a Danny Rule team. We are hard to beat. We might not be glamorous, we might not be playing attractive football, but I would expect us to be able to get a game, a tie back to Ibrox for us to finish the job. That's my prediction for Thursday, and all eyes on the next game. But good to chat to everyone, and let's hope it's a much more positive Sunday show the next time we catch up, guys.
Fingers crossed, Mark. Appreciate it, especially given you had to go through this twice.
That's fine, mate. I enjoy being on, even though when we are shit. No, as I said, it's good that European football's back on. I'll be sitting down watching it. As I said, hopefully to Dougie's point, getting a result. And I think he's maybe got a point in terms of Derek McKinnon's team in comparison to Russell Martin and Darren Rowe. However, we'll see what turns up on Thursday. But no, good to be on as always, mate. Enjoyed it.
Good stuff. William, thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me on. And again, it was just great to pod with you all and just on to Thursday and hopefully we get a good result.
Fingers crossed. Before we go, I just need to say another massive thank you to our exclusive Sunday show sponsor, Mortgage First. We are delighted that they have given the Sunday show their backing this season and are there for all your mortgage advice should you need it. We're also delighted with all the other sponsors that we've got, CBD Oil Scotland, LBJ Consultants, Elite Scooters Scotland, Metaclad, the Aesthetics Lounge by Sharon, Denhay Bacon, as well as our very own Candid, along with the season-long partners over at Rangers Youth Development Company, Black Rooster and Art of Gold. If you want to become a member and get access to all of the ad-free shows, details will be in the show notes. Again, Flagship will be back tomorrow night and there'll be a show every single night next week as we continue to talk all things Rangers. All that's left for me to do is just to say a massive thank you for everybody tuning in, watching live, listening back on your normal pod sources. Appreciate all the support and hopefully you have a good week ahead. Thank you for watching.
The Four Lads Rangers podcast is proudly sponsored by Candid, LBJ Consultants, CBD Oil Scotland, Elite Scooters Scotland and Metaclad, Four Lads exclusive roofing partner. The Aesthetics Lounge by Sharon, Denhay, the quintessential British bacon. Thank you to all our sponsors and in partnership with Black Rooster, Art of Gold and Rangers Youth Development Company. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.